This podcast was recorded on traditional Denizal land.
Hello and welcome to Before the Peace. I'm your host, Jenna Moreland, and I'm here with my co-host and producer of the podcast, Tre Lapashinsky.
Hey guys, today we chatted with Waylon Fenton, the son of local author Christy Jordan-Fenton, who wrote the book Fatty Legs, along with her mother-in-law Olemaun, who is the grandmother of Waylon. Waylon chatted with us briefly about being an Indigenous athlete as a rugby player and a powerlifter, as well as growing up around his mother, who is also an Indigenous advocate, and his grandmother, who was a residential school survivor.
Yeah, I actually picked up Waylon from high school on his lunch hour to come and do the podcast, and he was so nice, such a good kid, and he was just so thankful for the opportunity. And I think he was a little nervous and a little quiet, but
you will be able to definitely notice that in the podcast. But he started to open up throughout. I mean, we do want to say he's 16, and he's busy, and he made time to come on the podcast. Like, we rescheduled 4 times. Because he's so busy. Like we said, the powerlifting and the rugby and school, like, it's not just hobbies for him. This kid is
He's
training.
got a busy schedule.
He's very, very, very busy. So we're so stoked to have him on. And you'll be hearing more from him, maybe not so much on the podcast, but even on Energeticcity.ca, with all the things that he is doing as a rugby player and as a power lifter, and kind of the dreams and goals that he has. I think we'll be hearing a lot more from him.
I think we're going to see a lot of good things coming from
You can
him.
just, like, I just met him today, and you can see the potential.
Yeah, he's got good energy, too.
Yeah, he definitely does, definitely.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to talk about, kind of switching topics here, Remembrance Day. So, a lot of Remembrance Day ceremonies have live video feeds on Remembrance Day throughout the country, and I was watching a couple of them on Friday, and one thing really stuck out to me. Obviously, it's very important that we pay respects and honor the veterans that fought for us. But that's all veterans, and I've seen a couple ceremonies where there's just one specific representative of one religion, and then that wasn't as bad. I did see it as like a red flag. Like, hey, why aren't we at least mentioning that, these thousands and thousands of Canadians who fought for the country had different beliefs? But I let that one go. The one thing that really struck me was there were a couple that did not have land acknowledgements.
Which I'm surprised about.
And I just want to use this as a platform to mention that the Canadians that fought for us, they were all different religions, different cultures. There were Indigenous veterans that fought for our country. And I just want people to remember that every year. And that's just really all I want to say on the matter. I'm not going to go reach out to a local government in Saskatchewan and say, why didn't you do a land acknowledgement? I mean, by now they should know. But it's just something that really stuck out to me. And I think... it's not going to go far from here, but for anyone who listens, just remember, let's try and nip this in the butt because we need to remember everyone as a whole.
On the weekend, me and Tre went to a play.
Yes.
And it was called Bunk Number 7.
By the Raven Collective.
Yes. And it actually was starring Kiefer. I don't remember his last name.
I don't either.
But he was on Big Brother Canada.
4th place.
Yeah. I watched that season and I enjoyed him on the season. Honestly, like in the first half of the play, I was like, I know who that is. It's driving me crazy. Who is that? I recognize him and his voice. But anyways, it was really interesting, and I'm really glad that we got out to the play, for sure.
He was the most... I don't want to rate it and say he was the best there, but he's the one who stuck out the most to me.
He had the most confidence.
Yeah, he had the confidence. I think he had skills that transferred from Big Brother, and he does stand up, and he's an actor. I
think he's just a very outgoing person.
But he had really good comedic timing, and I mean, this is coming from a story that was about residential schools. Like Bunk Number 7 is referring to a specific bunk within a residential school, and kind of what they experienced in the school. Each student, quote unquote, is from a different community. So there's different lingo used there for the different tribes that they are from, the different communities. It was very, very interesting. And it was just, they kind of wrapped, I'm not really big into plays, mainly because I just haven't, sought it out. I haven't went to go see plays too often. So it was a little different for me, but I did really, really enjoy it. And honestly, I'm thinking about going to another play this weekend.
Yeah, it was a good night out.
I liked
and
it a lot.
at the end, I definitely got chills and I teared up a bit towards the end, especially when they had their capes on at the end. But there was the song at the end that I Shazammed.
So, okay, I wanted to tell you about this, and I didn't. So right after, I was like, Jenna, what song is that?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm Shazamming it. I said, send it to me. I listened to it as soon as I got in my car.
Yeah.
That is, it's a new name, but it was a Tribe Called Red. That's them, but they changed their name.
Oh.
Yeah. Because then I started Googling it.
Okay. I didn't realize they changed their name. It's called Electric Powwow Drum. Mm-hmm. And it is such a good song.
Could we play it? Are we going to get dinged if we play a snippet of it?
I don't know.
We're just going to play a little snippet. It's a really good song. Quality might be a little garbage because it's coming from a phone into the mic, but
here,
I was jamming this on the way home.
Here, I'll fast forward a bit.
I feel like this song has been used a lot because they're pretty popular. Okay, let's not get sued. Let's pause that. I highly suggest that song. Free advertisement for them.
So good.
It's so good. But they played that right at the ending of the play, and I don't want to give too much away because Bunk Number 7's a traveling play. They're not from the north. They traveled up to do a northern tour.
I think we were their last stop.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah. And they've been on the road for a long time.
It was phenomenal. It was a very good show. I'll be honest, the first part myself, I was very confused and I was listening intently, but they did a good job in the second half of kind of bringing it back.
Yeah.
And the second half was just so informative and better, and there was a lot of moments that were big. And the ending,
powerful.
I want to talk about the ending because it was so powerful.
Yeah.
But all we'll say is the capes, each student had an animal, and then that song played. It was really sweet. It was awesome. Standing applause across the North Beach Cultural Center.
I think it was
wonderful.
It was really interesting to see the kind of the camaraderie that happened within the school with these boys that kind of band together, almost kind of became family in a sense.
It's so funny you bring that up because in the first part I was like, why does this seem like this just a boys hanging out? Why does it seem so kind of chill? But then as the play went on, it was funny because my thought process started to change where it's we hear from the outside, we hear so much about the negativity. And I mean, a lot of it was negative, of course, but we didn't know that there was a camaraderie within these bunks amongst these kids.
Yeah. We
don't know that other than from the stories that we hear from residential school survivors, elders, knowledge keepers. It was very informative for me, just even from a play. I do think it was very, it was very informative. And if anyone has a chance to see it, I'm sure they'll do another tour. You should go see it. I highly suggest. It was very, very good.
Yeah.
Hopefully Kiefer's still on it. It was Kiefer, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
he was phenomenal. All of them were great. The three main actors were wonderful. But I just was drawn to Kiefer's character and just
he's so
because I
good.
feel like I would have been him. You know what I mean? So I kind of related a little bit. I would be the guy cracking jokes about this very, very shitty situation.
But also being protective at the same time.
Yeah, and he was. And he was very lovable, but he was also he had a hard-nosed feeling to him, kind of a rough exterior, just how he held himself. But then, just all the characters, and even the main character, I actually forgot his name, but essentially he wanted to be a lawyer. He was going to school to educate himself. He wanted to graduate. He was the smart one.
he was on a wait list to get into the residential school so that he could eventually go and be a lawyer.
And that actor who played the teacher that came in too, he was phenomenal. Those lines, he was rattling off lines left and right.
And it was written by an Indigenous man who died in 2005, I believe. Yeah. So it's nice that they're carrying on this story and being able to travel and show it to other people. So it was really good opportunity to go.
One thing I do want to bring up for Fort St. John, some people in Fort St. John might know this person I'm about to mention, and others who are listening who aren't from Fort St. John will not know who this is, but her name's Erin Griffith. She is essentially, I want to say the arts coordinator, coordinator for the city, arts and culture coordinator.
Yeah.
Sorry, Erin, if I got your position wrong there, but she's been bringing in incredible performances to Fort St. John, and she helped write this, I'm pretty sure, or she helped with the artistic direction. It was in the sheet.
Okay.
So Erin helped bring the play to Fort St. John, and she was just hired, I believe, earlier this year, if not last year. And she's just brought so much to Fort St. John in performances and art and culture. So there's your free shout out, Erin.
And I'm actually going to be posting a picture of bunk number 7 on our social media. So head to our Instagram, which is @beforethepeace, and our Twitter is @beforethepeace_.
And Kiefer, by the way, if you do happen to be listening to this podcast and all the great things we're saying about you, we are the people, well, Jenna specifically is the person that gave you our business card.
We'd love to have you on.
We want to have you out, Zoom, whatever you want, dude. We want to talk to you.
And you can email us at, what is our email?
Beforethepeace @moosefm.ca and beforethepeace @energeticcity.ca. Both of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Both. Okay.
Yeah.
And we would really love for you guys to subscribe to Before the Peace so you get notified when we have when we have new episodes out. And if you could please rate our show, any reviews are very helpful. And of course, this podcast wouldn't be possible without the help of Troyer Ventures. Troyer has been serving our community and the energy industry with tank and back trucks since 2000. They're built on the principles of hard work, service, and community, and they're proud to offer the financial support to make this program possible.
Also, shout out to EPSCAN Industries, who are known for building excellence safely.
We'd also like to say thank you to Click for their support. The Cultural Learning and Innovation Circle is a non-for-profit society that offers mentorship, coaching, and training opportunities. So this summer, you traveled to the U.S. for the first time. How was your experience in L.A. for the rugby tournament with the Indigenous Thunder Rugby Club?
Well, it was a really great experience, and it was amazing to be able to be surrounded by people just like me that enjoy the sport of rugby and also happen to be Indigenous. So we all share similarities. And
so is it Indigenous coach, players, everything? It's the entire team?
Yeah, mostly. Okay. There is some people who were not Indigenous, but for the majority of people and coaches, they were all Indigenous.
And that was your first time traveling to the States?
Yeah.
And how was it?
It was definitely a lot different. I really enjoyed it in the States, so
yeah,
it was nice.
Was LA sunny and nice when you were there? Good, good. I feel like every time I've been to LA, it's been sunny and nice, so I should hope so. So you represented Inuvialuit. Is that how you say it? Can you say it?
Yeah.
Okay. As an Indigenous athlete in high school. So what did it mean to you to represent your heritage at such a young age?
Well, it was definitely a privilege, and it felt really good to be able to represent Inuvialuit people, because we don't get that much recognition because we're such a small group of people from the north. So it was definitely amazing to be able to represent my family from the north.
And what was the camaraderie with the team? Was it cool getting to travel with that many people around your age?
Yeah, it was amazing. Well, everybody, it felt like I could just talk to anybody and about everything, and just, I don't know, didn't really have to, only took a few days to really get to know everybody.
Good. And what is the rugby community like in Fort St. John?
It's not too big, but everybody in the rugby community in Fort St. John are all very close, and we all get together and have practices, and it's just a very good community.
And okay, so I was talking to Waylon about this before we started recording, but I was asking him about what rugby was really like, because I don't really know much about rugby, and I'm just curious. So it's very physical, obviously. Yeah. So I would almost say like a more intense version of football. What, like, is it hard on your body? Like, or I guess you're so young that you're just able to just like recover so quickly.
It's a little bit hard on the body,
yeah.
But I think you kind of just get used to it, and it just makes you a stronger athlete too. It's not so much like broken bones or anything. I mean, for some people it is, but it's more just being sore at the end of the day and having some bruises. And
okay, and you wanted to potentially play at like a pretty high level, right? Is that like your goal? What is your goal, I guess, with rugby?
Yeah, I guess the goal would be to make the NLR or something around there, some level around there.
What does that mean?
NLR is like a rugby league, national rugby league.
We're talking about the Thunder Rugby Club. How did that opportunity come about? Like, how did you hear about it? Like, did you have to apply for anything, or did they like seek you out? Like, what happened there?
Well, it was actually Haley's mom, Crystal Duchak, and she previously met with John, the founder of Thunder Rugby, and she started giving me resources and just information about the tour to LA, and then the email to John, and I got into contact with John, and then I got emailing back and forth with him, and that's how the opportunity arose.
That's so awesome, because the Ducheks, like specifically Crystal, like their whole family is all about rugby. What's it like being around them? Like her daughters were there with you as well in LA. Like how was that? Because you were saying it's a smaller rugby community, right?
It almost felt like a second family I had, I guess, when I was traveling with them. I don't know, it felt exactly like if I'd be traveling with my mom or my dad and my entire family. It just felt like an extra family, I guess.
And you're commenting on how small the rugby community here is in Fort St. John, but it seems like it's growing.
Yeah. I definitely agree. It's definitely grown in the past, and I think it'll keep growing as a sport, just as more people begin to, I guess, notice it.
Because it is kind of like it's a popular sport, but it's one that not a lot of people know about unless it was like in their high school or something.
I think I'm not sure when, but it came over it started in Europe, I'm pretty sure. So then it came over, and then now it's starting to get recognized a lot more in North America. Yeah,
no, I know my high school had a rugby team, but like it's cool that there's a rugby team here, but there's no football. Like the high school doesn't have a football team, but there's rugby here, which is really sweet. As like a small community, you know, people can kind of attach themselves to this, you know, niche sport. I say that lightly because it is such a super popular sport. You go to like some of these tournaments and it's like arenas full of people.
It seems intense.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What I've seen on TV anyways.
And for anyone listening, I'm just going to say this right now. Jenna and I are sharing a mic, so there you go.
Thanks. So, I mean, because rugby is so close to football, I'm curious, like, would football be something that you would want to segue into eventually?
Yeah, if I had the opportunity, I'd definitely take it to be able to play football.
Okay.
And in the past, there has been rugby players that have transitioned into football, mainly kickers.
Okay.
They transitioned to being a kicker for football.
What position do you play in rugby?
I normally play winger when I'm playing sevens.
So you'd probably be like a receiver if you played football, eh?
Probably.
Yeah. You just look fast, Waylon.
Yeah, he does look fast.
All right, Waylon. So you're a fan of powerlifting. What's your PR right now, deadlift?
475.
What?
Yeah.
That's more than I weigh. Jeez Louise, pepper cheese. That's crazy.
Deadlift too.
So what got you into powerlifting? Was it like training for rugby, or did you get into it first?
Well, it was mainly training for sports, and then just, being on YouTube searching about lifting and stuff, it kind of brought me the sport of powerlifting. And the big thing about powerlifting I really enjoy is the fact that you could do it at any age and any physical ability, really. And it's just always something you could improve on, and it transfers over really well to rugby.
Yeah, it does. Well, even we were joking about football too. I mean, if you have a 475 deadlift, I mean, most of those football players are like at least 500, which is crazy because you're 17, right?
16.
16. 475, 16? What do you bench?
280.
Okay, I had you there at 16. Okay, sweet. This is like, oh my god, I could not deadlift that at 16. Yeah, I know. But I wasn't 6'9" at 16. I was like 6'3", but it's still. So with powerlifting, I mean, there's so many different like directions you can still go, and even with powerlifting, like you're saying, powerlifting could help you with different sports from rugby to football. I mean, heck, baseball, like everything, pretty much. Hell, you can go into professional wrestling, just powerlifting. You know what I mean? So, is you just wanting to stick to powerlifting, or would you like do strongman competitions or something one day?
I've thought about strongman. I'm not too sure if that's quite my thing. I think
different lifts.
I think I'm not quite tall enough for it too.
Yeah.
I think I could do it if I really put my mind to it, but I think I'm just gonna stick with powerlifting and rugby. Like,
that's awesome.
My big goal for powerlifting is to make IPF Worlds. I think that would be pretty cool.
And that's IPF Worlds. That's, what is that again?
International Powerlifting Federation.
Yeah. So it seems like with powerlifting and rugby, like these are both things that you can carry on for the rest of your life. Like my dad, he's in his 50s now, and he stopped playing rugby with the club because his knees were shot at like 40. Like but he's kept playing rugby and kept lifting. So even if you don't get into like a career in these specific sports, you're looking to still compete and still kind of do it for most of your life. It's your hobby, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I definitely like the fact of powerlifting that you could do it for as long as you want, really, and it's always something you can improve on, and it's nice to just see the numbers go up.
So how far are you getting into powerlifting? Like, are you looking at YouTube on like techniques and?
I have a powerlifting coach online too, so he programs the lifts for me, and I have a powerlifting meet this weekend actually in Prince George. So
that is sweet. Okay, well, let's get your number after this so we can do a story on it. But my other thing too is nutrition. Like, it seems we talked about you being an Indigenous athlete, and we kind of just brought up rugby, but it's so interesting that you're into both. So are you fully into like the athlete world? Like, are you looking at your nutrition? Like, are you really strict on those things?
Fairly strict. I try and keep it a little bit balanced too, because I am a teenager and it's hard. It's hard sometimes, but I try and get in my protein at least and my calories for the day.
What point do you get an agent?
I'm not sure.
If he got his pro card for powerlifting, because powerlifting has pro cards through the federation, don't they?
No, it's more your qualifying total.
Oh, okay.
And then so they have different age divisions and weight divisions, and that would determine your qualifying total to make it to nationals. And then your qualifying total, or from nationals, I guess they select the best lifter out of your age and weight class, and then they have the opportunity to make it to worlds.
So even like past 18, once you're like an adult, is it a pro card, or is it the same thing you're talking about?
It's the same
qualifications.
Thing. There's sub junior, which is I guess normally 16 to 18. There's sub junior, if I'm correct, and then junior would be 18 to I think 23.
Wow, that's so awesome, man. I think I mean, too, you don't hear a lot of 16-year-olds say they're interested in rugby and powerlifting. So
Yeah.
it's really cool to hear your experience and like that you're so interested in it
Yeah.
to the point of getting a coach, working on your nutrition. And yeah, you're 16. If you want to go get McDonald's sometimes, dude, just don't do it overboard. You'll end up like this. But like, you know, I used to be very in gym rat, and then I just stopped doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I definitely eat a lot of burgers sometimes. Just trying to fuel myself up before I lift.
Well, as long as you're not eating tons of burgers at like 25, then you're good, because that's when your metabolism's slow. Now you're good. You're athletic.
I think the
enough.
most burgers I've had in a day was like 7 or something like that.
Yeah. So, the football team, when like in high school, it was disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we would go work out, but we did not care about nutrition. That's why I asked you, because we were like going to McDonald's every single day after practice. It was ridiculous. And now I look like how I look now.
Do you find it hard to balance everything being a teenager?
Yeah, I'd
like
say it's
you've got a
definitely
busy
hard.
schedule. Even us just trying to get you in for this podcast was a little hard because like you're so busy. I mean, you got tryouts, you got competitions on the weekend. Do you have a girlfriend?
No.
Okay. Well, that frees up a little bit of time. But so like, how do you balance everything?
I don't know. I find it very hard.
Yeah.
I just try and fit everything in, I guess. I really liked when I was working over the summer in the patch, though, because it'd be work and then I'd go home. I'd go and work out and then I'd go home and eat, and it was kind of just a
Very
steady
scheduled.
schedule. Yeah.
Okay. What were you doing in the patch?
Just helping pipe fitters and
Okay.
welders.
Okay. And do you think you'll take a career path like that
Uh,
eventually? Like if
maybe.
Yeah.
If well, you can't really make too much money off of powerlifting besides, I guess, if you do some sort of social media and have sponsors. So I think if rugby and lifting doesn't really work out, then I'll probably maybe look at going into the patch for source of income.
would you ever do that, like with sponsors, and have a platform kind of like almost influencer kind of style?
Yeah, well, I definitely think that I'd like to do that for a career. That's definitely a big goal, but I don't know. Just have to see how it works.
Just keep doing
out.
what you're doing. I think what you're doing is you're on the right track. That's for sure. Not a lot of 16-year-olds think about nutrition, so.
Well, no, that's what I was gonna say. Is like you have discipline, which is, and I would say you got that from your mom, right? Yeah, I would seems like that way, at least you know, talking with Christy and getting to know her over the past year. But yeah, no, that's so cool, man. I'm so interested in the powerlifting because, like I said, you don't hear a lot of kids like. Usually, kids or people who end up being, you know, private trainers and things like that, like they started going to the gym in high school, some of them, but no one ever took it as serious. So I think that's really cool, man. Yeah, just stick to what you're doing, and like I said, just don't get carried away on the fast food. End up like
Okay, and so is there any advice that you have for Indigenous athletes that are trying to get into a specific level in their sport, or I guess just advice in general?
I'd just like to say, like, just remember when you do great things that you're representing your community and your hometown, and it definitely brings a lot of pride to your community and a lot of courage. It's a lot of courage to really represent yourself.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And there isn't a lot of Indigenous athletes, like professional athletes, that are very well known. Why do you think that is?
I think
Just haven't had the opportunity quite yet?
Yeah, I just think that it's such a small community of people. Like, there's quite a few Indigenous people, but compared to a lot of other people, it's very small.
So your mom is Christy Jordan-Fenton, who we've had on the podcast before, well-known author in the region, Indigenous advocate, and I would say educator in the region as well. Your late grandmother, Margaret, or Olemaun, was a residential school survivor. You and your family seem very driven to educate the public on Indigenous stories and issues. What did you learn from your upbringing? What was that like?
Well, I just learned to really embrace my culture and to not be ashamed of it. And growing up, learning from my grandmother, she was stubborn at times and she didn't let stuff get to her like a lot of other people. And just seeing her go through a lot of stuff and be able to still keep going, it really gave me the courage that I could do it myself. And
That's awesome. I mean, the past couple years with the specifically with the 216 in 2020, I feel like more and more people, organizations are talking about Indigenous issues. It's top of mind. And before it wasn't talked about as much. So for you, still being in school, probably hearing about it all the time at school, while growing up, hearing about these issues when a lot of people didn't, when it first started, when it first dropped about the 216, what were your initial thoughts? And like, did you have a conversation with your mom? Like, how did that go? Or are you the person that some of your friends may look at for questions on Indigenous issues? I just rattled like 4 questions at you right there. But
well, I think that a lot of people knew about residential schools, but they didn't know how bad it was until further information was being released and until they actually learned about it. So it's definitely good to be able to get like the recognition for stuff like that happen, because I don't know, when something big like that happens, I think that it needs to be talked about. And yeah.
Does your friends know about like you and your family's history? Like, do you have friends come up to you asking you questions?
Sometimes, yeah. I have a few friends that know about it. I try not to bring it up like a crazy amount, just because I don't know. I just don't want anyone to see me differently because of it. I don't know.
I actually noticed that you like lit up a little bit when you were talking about your grandmother. Like your eyes lit up a little bit. And I'm just curious how you think she might have felt over the last few years, now that things are opening up a little bit more, the conversations are happening more. Do you think, I guess I'm trying to piece together the right way, because it's like just in the last few years, it's changed so much. And I'm just curious your grandmother, from the things that she saw to where things are now, it's so different.
Yeah. Well, I remember when she was, when my mom was first creating the book on my grandmother was a little bit hesitant to let her write the book because she thought nobody would care, and she didn't really think it was a good idea. She didn't really like talking about it too much, but I don't know, as she saw stuff opening up more about residential school, she started to really realize people care about it and people want to hear her story. And I think it was just, it was really good for her to see that people actually care about her story and want to hear about it.
Yeah, and you traveled with them quite a bit, right? On book tours and stuff. And how was that?
Oh, it was really good. I was really close to my grandmother, and it'd be nice to, it was nice to always care for her, and she'd always tell me stories, and I really enjoyed it.
How was it being a kid on the road?
It was nice.
Yeah.
It was nice to just get away from home sometimes and be able to see a bit of the world.
It's so funny because when we were doing the research before speaking to your mom, we watched a YouTube video, like an interview. I think it was like ITV or Tellus or something, and it was you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, well, you're like 6, so it's so weird. I mean, we'll have a picture for the podcast, but Waylon is a grown-ass kid right now. Yeah. You were so small, and now you're playing rugby.
Yeah. What would you suggest if there was a young Indigenous person, or just an Indigenous person in general, who wants to speak up but doesn't know how? Do you have any advice for them?
I would say to just start small and then work your way up, speaking about whatever you have to speak about. Just, I think starting off small might build up the courage to be able to talk to a big group of people on something.
I'm curious. I don't even know if we necessarily need to put this into the podcast, so we can maybe cut this out if we need to. But I'm just curious because my nephew is 16. He's not up here, but I'm just curious, just in the school system in general, because Indigenous culture is being talked about so much more now. Do you find it hard almost like maybe it's too much? Like, how, do other kids feel like that?
Like it's too much?
Like in the schools, like talking about it too much or anything? Like,
because it's so top of mind, I feel like it's people keep bringing it up so often because it's a main issue that we're tackling in Canada. So, you know, we're far removed from high school.
Yeah.
So what's it like?
Well, there's a lot of there's Orange Shirt Day, and then they talked about it quite a bit when they found the bodies at that residential school. But since then, there's not too much talk on it, actually.
okay.
And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because if you keep bringing the same stuff up to people, they might backlash at it, and they don't.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was
yeah.
curious about, was like, just because my nephew had mentioned that it was almost so top of mind in their school that it was like, ugh, like, we have to talk about this again, kind of thing. So I was just curious as to how it was in high school, but that's good that it's not, like, I want them to talk about it, because I think it's necessary. It wasn't talked about when I was in high school, and I think it needs to be, but yeah, it's finding that balance.
Yeah, finding that balance. And if you keep bringing it up too, then people, when you bring up new evidence, people won't really take it in as much, and they'll just think of it as same old speech about residential school that they get every day, and like just keeping that open slate for when you're ready, when they find new information.
So I was looking at a CBC article that you were actually mentioned in last year. And you mentioned a time in school where there was an instance of a teacher locally trying to justify that residential schools were better than what survivors had at home. Knowing the experience that your grandmother went through, I mean, most people, when they would hear that, would probably be like, oh, that's wrong. But you know of the experience firsthand from your grandmother. What was that like for you to hear that?
Well, I thought it was just a very ignorant comment for her to make, and it was a little bit frustrating, but she's obviously entitled to her own opinion, and even though she's wrong, it was very frustrating, but I kind of just tried to keep my cool about it and just try to, educate her a little more on it.
And so then did you just get transferred right out of class after that, or?
Well, I was having issues with that teacher specifically, so I ended up transferring classes.
So you're born and raised Fort St. John, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was it like growing up in Fort St. John and in the community? Because a lot of people who grew up in this town didn't really leave Fort St. John much, but you did. You got to travel so much.
Yeah.
So was it very different going from Fort St. John and then traveling to all these big cities?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a lot different. People live a lot differently, I guess, in the city. Kind of the same, but a little bit different. Like people's jobs and everything, it's all a lot different. And talking to people, like, they might not share the same experiences as somebody who lives in Fort St. John. So it was a little bit different.
So in your opinion, what can a non-Indigenous person or people do to become better allies and be more supportive of reconciliation in Indigenous culture?
Just be open-minded and be open to listening, survivor stories, and just be respectful of Indigenous people's culture. And that's really, like, all that I at least ask from people. Like, you don't really have to do anything over the top or nothing. It's just be respectful and
accepting.
Be
accepting and just open-minded, and that's all that I ask.
I just wanted to bring this up because we keep, bringing up the advocacies and for Indigenous issues, bringing up you being an Indigenous athlete. Do you see yourself that way? Do you see yourself as an advocate? So are you going to be openly talking about Indigenous issues? Yeah, your mom's open about talking about Indigenous culture and Indigenous issues and advocating. Would you consider yourself that way? Or I guess an ally would be a good way to put it too.
Yeah, I'd consider myself an advocate. I try not involve it, like, me being Indigenous and everything, but I definitely advocate.
Yeah, because I could just imagine, like, we should have brought that up at the beginning, because we keep bringing up so much just talking with your mom, and because she is such a huge advocate, that's kind of brought those questions to you as well. But definitely, yeah, I just wanted to know of, like, in the future, do you think you might take a path that has you in a main role advocating for Indigenous culture, Indigenous issues? Like, what are you looking at career-wise?
Be a wide receiver.
Well, I think whatever career path I take, if I can educate people on Indigenous culture and still, kind of not be like annoying about it, then I definitely would.
You just want to have the information to inform people, but you don't want to be like outspoken with it, right? Like, you don't want to go on the soapbox and just talk, but you want to be the person that people could come to, right?
Yeah. Well, if people have questions, then I think it'd be awesome to, like, I love when people have questions about my grandma or anything. It's just, I just try not to, bring it up too much and try and, I don't know.
It's so funny. You're right. Every time we mention his grandma, you smile.
Right? It's so cute. Like, his eyes light up. It's so cute. So we ask this question to all of our guests. What does reconciliation mean to you?
Reconciliation means to me just recognizing the stuff that happened in the past and healing from it. I think that's the two biggest things with reconciliation. I think as long as you could recognize it and, I guess, heal from it.
Make sure you guys subscribe to Before the Peace using your favorite podcast app or at energeticcity.ca/podcasts.
If you have a guest or program idea, email beforethepeace@moosefm.ca or beforethepeace@energeticcity.ca. Yes, we do have 2 emails. And I do want to let you guys know that the Before the Peace podcast is brought to you by Energeticcity.ca, a Peace Region online newspaper. It's a local company, and we're looking for support. If you want to give it to us, it's not a big deal, but I mean, if you want to keep being informed, it might help us a little bit. Before the Peace, no, not Before the Peace, Energeticcity.ca/contribute to support us. And if you want to get our stories straight to your inbox every single day, Energeticcity.ca/newsletter.